Watch this story. India striking back against Pakistan. This in retaliation for a deadly terror attack in Kashmir that happened about 15 days ago. Pakistan vowing to retaliate, raising the specter of an all-out war. Here's what the president said about it last evening from the Oval Office, 5 p.m. East Coast time.
It's a shame. They've been fighting for a long time. You know, they've been fighting for many, many decades and centuries, actually, if you really think about it. No, I just hope it ends very quickly.
The State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce is with me now, and thank you for your time and good morning to you. What can you tell us as to whether or not it has escalated overnight or whether things are calming down at this point?
Well, what I can tell you is, of course, that everyone, you know, we see this kind of moving forward after that horrible attack. And at the same time, Secretary Rubio, as he's noted at the State Department X account, and certainly as I was watching it unfold as well, and hearing the conversations, he spoke with the national security individuals for both countries last night. His point to them was to make sure that lines of communication should stay open, that he would be able to help facilitate whatever they needed to have facilitated regarding communication to make sure that did not break down. And also, of course, for both of them, to not escalate. You know, the world is watching, as you've noted, and as everyone knows, this has been going on for generations. And one thing we can say, certainly, that is the world understands from President Trump and from Secretary Rubio is that they want these generational wars and problems to end. And the way, clearly, the status quo has not worked. And the way to do it is, in fact, through the vision and the handling and the insight of Donald Trump and the people that surround him. So it is good that, you know, we're involved in the sense of assisting a kind of a communication as occurred last night and to touch base with both of those parties. And, of course, they know we want no escalation, but we're here to assist making sure that their communication is maintained.
There is contact. There's in communication. That's what I'm hearing from your answer. A couple of things for our viewers.
Yes, exactly.
Nuclear warheads in India, 210. They got the bomb in the 1970s. Pakistan, 200. They got the bomb in 1998. Two of the three wars fought between these two countries were fought over what is considered sacred land in the northern part of India, known as Kashmir. 15 days ago, you had 26 Hindu tourists going on a pilgrimage to what they consider a sacred area. It's called the Meadow. And they were gunned down by tourists. And according to the Associated Press, some of the men were gunned down while their wives were watching. Are you urging restraint on behalf of India, or is there a sense of understanding for a response? What's our position?
Well, you know, the president has said constantly that military violence, war does not solve, it's pretty obvious, doesn't solve any of these problems. They continue. And our message, certainly from the beginning, from his last term and this term, unfortunately, with the condition the world was left in by the last administration, is the president has had to engage in multiple situations that have been generationally long to stop them, of course, around the world. And then, of course, Russia, Ukraine, the Gaza situation. But the message is the same in every instance, Bill. It's that war and violence in the military does not solve the problems. We have proof that it doesn't solve the problems. That will be the case in any part of the world, certainly in this part of the world. And the fact is, I'm proud, we should all be proud of the fact that we are leading this argument to the world that the status quo, wars without end, are no longer acceptable. And I'm not going to comment on the nature of India's decision-making or Pakistan's, but I know our decision-making is to make sure these things stop without carnage.
All right, Tammy, let me get to another important issue here. Yesterday in the Oval Office, the president announced this with regard to the Houthis in Yemen, which sounded a lot like a ceasefire. Just watch here.
The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore.
Okay, so there we have it now. Is this a ceasefire? Is Israel a part of it?
Well, you know, I'm not going to characterize it in a sense in what the White House views it as, or certainly with the DOD's involvement, the NSC, et cetera. What I can tell you, of course, also is what Secretary Rubio said in that room and in the Oval Office, is that this has always been about freedom of navigation, that the problem was they were striking hundreds of ships in the Red Sea, stopping the ability for ships to have that waterway to transport goods or people. They were shooting at us, and we needed it to stop. And at the start, we said that this is not a pinprick. This is not a little punishment. We are going to continue to bomb them until they stop the actions that they've been taking. And from the president, we've learned that they've vowed to do that. And that is what the secretary noted also, is that this has been about freedom of navigation. It appears in their statement that that is what they've agreed to. But we've also noted in other instances that we will take people and regimes not at their word. We will watch their actions. But there's a point where things have to start. President Trump's approach, of course, has worked again in that nobody in the world seems to be used to a forceful American response with a leader who will not back down. Now they have one. They know his history. And part of this success is not just our military action. It's the fact that Trump is the president, and they know that he gets done what he says he wants done, and they're complying, and that's good news.
All right, there's the two very, very important topics here. Thanks for coming on. We should point out that maybe in a case like this, you verify. You don't even trust in a case like this with the Houthis. And we're waiting to see what Israel does, too. The Houthis claim that they fired a hypersonic missile at Ben Gurion Airport outside of Tel Aviv over the weekend. That's their claim. Nonetheless, that missile did get through, and we'll see what Jerusalem says after that. Tammy, thank you.
It's not about trusting them. It's about watching and what moves forward, and then dealing with it again. So I think that's clear from the president.
Got it. Thank you, Tammy Bruce, State Department. Thank you, sir.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.